So what's all the fuss about sodium-ion batteries? Are they really able to compete with today's lithium technology? I was recently invited to the offices of 11 in Cambridge in the UK to chat to them about the technology and also their own sodium-ion battery product. I'm Gary and welcome back to my channel, Gary Does Solar. So there's been a lot of talk about sodium-ion technology lately, and I wanted to understand what all the fuss was about. And so I thought, who better than to talk to yourself, Andy and Neil from 11, a British company in the UK, who you're involved in the technology and you have products around the technology. And I just wanted to understand a little bit more about the technology and why you got into that business, particularly that lithium ion is quite prevalent in the world, certainly of home battery technology. So maybe you could just start the discussion then. What is it about sodium ion technology that is all the talk at the moment? Andy?
Yeah, thanks. So as I'm sure you're aware, most solar PV systems that get installed these days have batteries that go alongside them. And the reason for that is simple. During the day, you're probably generating more from your solar array than you can use, and you would otherwise be sort of sending that back to the grid.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the evening, you're wanting to use power that you're having to draw from the grid because there's no sunshine left. So if you can store that energy in a battery, then you can save on a lot of that energy you'd have to buy overnight. And yeah, increasing numbers, the vast majority of systems that are sold now in the UK will have a battery alongside the solar panels. And for the last few years, that's usually been a lithium-ion battery, the same sort of technology really as you've got in your phone or your laptop or even your car. And I mean, lithium's great. It's a really good battery. It's nice and energy dense. You can get a lot of energy into a given sort of size and weight, but it does have some disadvantages as well. One of the biggest disadvantages is that there simply isn't that much lithium in the world. Right. It's really quite scarce and difficult to extract. You've got to go to places like the Atacama Desert, extract it from brines there and use huge amounts of water in the processing in a place where there's not much water. Or the Australian outback, again, where you can do quite a lot of environmental damage when you're extracting that lithium. So what we've got is a sodium battery. Sodium is very similar to lithium in terms of its sort of electrical and chemical properties. If you look at a periodic table, you've got lithium sort of sat in the top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
Sodium's just directly beneath it, and it has very similar properties in terms of sort of giving up its electrons and behaving in a battery the same way as it does with lithium. So really, you can do anything that you can do with lithium in terms of battery technology, you can also do with sodium. The big advantage of that is that sodium is really abundant, it's easy to extract, you get it from sea salt. So we're never going to run out of sodium. And there's much less environmental damage associated with getting that sodium compared to the lithium industry.
That's a really good introduction to the technology, Andy. Thank you for that. You mentioned, some of the benefits already, like availability, and I hadn't really thought about that one. It's a really important one. But there are many other benefits of sodium-ion technology, and one that I've heard of is about operating at cold temperatures. So, I mean, Neil, perhaps I could ask you, could you say a little bit more about that? And particularly how it compares with lithium-ion technology?
Yeah, sure, because obviously the recommendation at the moment is that batteries can't be installed in lofts and they can't be installed in living spaces. And we all know that what is a recommendation now tends to become regulation tomorrow. And certainly in the UK, that means that the spaces available for location of batteries is sparse, and that usually mandates at best a garage, but normally outdoor. So that means that you're facing quite regularly for several months a year in the UK, minus temperatures, sometimes down to minus 15, sometimes minus 20 degrees. Now we know that LFP, lithium iron phosphate chemistries, don't behave particularly well at low temperatures, to the point where it is impossible to charge them at minus temperatures. So this means that in the depths of winter, especially where there's not enough sunlight, you tend to have to charge overnight when it's coldest, and a lot of people wake up to find that their batteries just simply didn't charge because the battery management system in the battery has refused to charge. And if you refuse to charge point blank, that means you can't kickstart the chemical process that produces heat. So as a result, where LFP batteries have to be located outdoors, usually mandates that you have heating elements in there, which contributes to a parasitic drain on energy. Sodium has nowhere near the same cold weather performance characteristics. So what this means is with a sodium ion system, you can charge at 0.2 C at minus 20 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
Now, what that means in reality, if you imagine 0.2 C means the capacity of the battery, 1/5 of the capacity of the battery. So the reality is that you can charge from empty to full a sodium ion battery in the same kind of time that you have in your overnight low rate periods. So this means that you get excellent cold weather performance from it that results in a full charge overnight.
Well, you're not wrong about UK weather conditions in the winter, that's for sure. So I can see that's a really strong benefit for the technology. And am I right in thinking that in terms of the capacity of the battery, it's not quite affected so much by cold weather?
True, yes. I mean, it's a much more stable capacity and round trip efficiency over all seasons. So what we and one of the benefits of sodium ion in general is that there's no depth of discharge penalty. So like you have with certainly lithium ion. Effectively, if you over discharge a lithium ion cell, it's done. That's it. Chuck it away, because you get formation of dendrites that can, at best, impede the performance of the battery. At worst, create some quite serious hazards with it. With sodium ion, you don't have the same issues, and the result of that is that in theory you can discharge a sodium ion cell to 0 volts with no penalty.
Wow.
In reality, of course, there's power is voltage times current. So if the volts goes to 0, the current goes to infinity. So the reality is that you can discharge the cell to about 1.8 volts per cell. Right. What it means is that there's no penalty for that. So when normally you reserve a bottom buffer of capacity, you don't have to do the same thing with sodium ion. And this means, A, that depth of discharge is 100%, but B, it also means that there's no emotional kind of decision that you make on, how far can I discharge this battery? Am I impacting the warranty or the longevity of it? You don't have the same concerns with sodium ion.
That was pretty in-depth answer there, Neil. Thanks very much for that. Andy, I need to come back to you. You were talking about seawater and the availability of sodium from that. How do you extract it from seawater? And I guess that brings me on to, what about the other materials required for a sodium ion battery, and are they just as available?
Yeah, absolutely. So common sea salt, table salt that you'll use in your chips or whatever is just sodium chloride. It's a salt with sodium ions and chlorine ions. And you can quite easily separate those by electrolysis. You'll end up with sodium on one side and chlorine on the other, and it gives you sodium metal. And then you can make the various materials that need to go into the battery cell from that. But you're absolutely right. It's not purely sodium, just as it's not purely lithium in a lithium cell. So you've got electrode materials, and you have a negative electrode and a positive electrode. In the negative electrode, that would usually be graphite and carbon in a lithium system. In sodium, we actually use something called hard carbon, which is both graphite and hard carbon are just pure carbon. But the difference with hard carbon is it's a slightly porous, sort of spongy material. You can actually get it by taking waste biological material, maybe coconut husks or something like that, and just heating them up to sort of burn off all the other elements and just leaving you with the carbon. And it's this sort of very porous structure. And the reason that's good is it allows the sort of sodium ions to diffuse in and out much more easily. It's one of the reasons actually that the low temperature performance is better, as we were just talking about. So yes, that's another material that's readily available. In fact, sort of coming from a waste stream, if you like, some of this biological material. And then, of course, you need the positive electrode, the cathode as well. There's various different materials you can use there. One of them is sodium iron phosphate. So it's actually pretty much exactly the same as the lithium iron phosphate, but you're substituting sodium for the lithium there. Yeah. And iron, phosphorus, oxygen, they're all very common elements. And then finally, the last thing you need is the electrolyte, the sort of liquid that goes between the two electrodes of the cell. And again, we use very common, easily available organic solvents in the cells. So all these materials are really quite readily available and relatively low cost. So at the moment, the cost of a sodium ion system is fairly similar to that of lithium ion, but that's largely just to do with sort of the scale of the manufacturing process. As that develops and becomes larger, we'll expect the price of sodium ion cells to come down even further.
Do you know, this is what I love about technology. It's always improving. People are finding new materials, new elements that they could work with. And I think that availability issue, and therefore the cost going down over time, is actually a massive, massive benefit that well, I guess you guys are realizing it because you're building products against it. But I just love all that. I do have a quick question though. What about the charge and discharge rates of sodium ion compared to lithium ion?
Yeah, they're very similar, really. In fact, a lot of sodium-ion batteries can be better, and you can charge them really very quickly and discharge them quickly. One big difference, of course, is at the low temperatures, where you get this electrolyte solidifying in lithium batteries. You don't have that problem with sodium. But it's also actually to do with that carbon electrode that I was talking about. Yeah. In a lithium cell, you're using graphite. It's got very small pores. It's quite difficult to get those lithium ions in and out again. Yeah. Whereas with this hard carbon electrode that we use, those sodium ions can diffuse in and out very, very quickly. And that actually allows you to have really quite high charge and discharge rates. I would say, however, that actually it doesn't make all that much difference in a home storage system like this one, because in a car, when you're accelerating hard, then you are or want to charge quickly at a service station, then you do need to charge really quickly or discharge really quickly. In fact, in home energy storage, you're very rarely operating at more than what's called 1C, basically charging it or discharging it in less than an hour. So yeah, the cells that we've got, absolutely no problem with the sort of charge and discharge rates that we're subjecting them to.
Brilliant. Well, my next question then, and I think this is a question that a lot of my viewers will have, and it's all about safety. So we know that with lithium-ion technology, like NMC technology, not quite as safe as LFP technology, you know, much safer now. What about sodium-ion technology? How does that compare?
Yeah, so there's a couple of dangers with lithium-ion batteries. One is the sort of dendrite formation that we talked about before. That's basically where lithium forms on the surface of the electrode instead of within it, and that can cause these sort of spikes of metal to start growing across the electrolyte and actually causing a short circuit. Again, with the porous electrodes that we use, that's much less of a problem. The plating doesn't really happen on the outside. It all happens within the electrode. So that's one safety improvement. And the other reason that sodium-ion batteries are really good is that they don't suffer from thermal runaway. Essentially, if you get an NMC battery that you were talking about, when you get it really hot, you actually start to break down the oxygen and other materials that are inside that positive electrode, and that actually starts giving off oxygen. And of course, oxygen is one of the things you need for a fire. So you get this sort of vicious circle where you're creating more heat from the oxygen that you're generating, and that's much less of a problem in sodium-ion cells. You don't get that at the sort of temperatures that you'd be seeing in a fire with a sodium-ion battery. I think we do need to be fair and say that actually lithium iron phosphate cells are also quite safe. in fires, and they also don't suffer from thermal runaway. So I wouldn't want your viewers to be worried that fires in storage batteries are actually common. They're actually extremely rare. So, but yeah, hopefully even rarer with sodium than lithium.
Thanks, Andy. And it's really great to see that safety in general is just improving all the time. So Neil, I've got a tough question for you.
Okay.
And I've heard that, some really good benefits of sodium-ion technology that we're hearing from you guys, which is fantastic.
Sure.
But there are some, let's say, some negatives. And what I would like to understand is, what are those downsides and how have you addressed them?
Sure, because, why are only we doing it? I guess, why is lithium so abundant in the storage sector? And obviously the chemistry lesson we got earlier, you've got lithium, it's, for what it does, it's a very dense element. Sodium, less dense, which means for the same amount of storage, it's bigger, you need more of it. Compared to LFP, it's around 15 to 20%. Okay. So in the automotive sector, that's massive. Obviously, you're dealing with a heavier battery, a bigger battery. In home energy storage, not so important really, 20% bigger outside your house probably doesn't amount to very much. So for this deployment, it really makes sense. The other attributes you've got, and many people talk about round trip efficiency. But what we're seeing in the lab was around 95% round trip efficiency, which is quite comparable across all seasons to LFP.
Yeah.
And what we've seen bringing a product to market and having a year's worth of data in our energy management system is we've been able to take real world data from year round and compare that to the labs, and we're seeing very much that in the field as well. So we're not seeing the round trip efficiency being anywhere near what's touted by others, and maybe that's because we're using high quality, genuine cells in our technology, whereas other products that are kind of made into car battery form factors and things like that may use substandard cells.
Yes.
So maybe that explains why we're seeing something completely different to others. Another thing that you see in sodium ion compared to lithium is the voltage curve.
Yes.
So in lithium ion, that's about 3.3 to 4.2 volts, so just over a volt drop per cell. In LFP, it's incredibly stable. You pretty much don't see any difference in battery voltage, and what that results in, of course, power is voltage times current. It means that you see a very stable power curve as well. So much so, in fact, in LFP that it's very difficult to ascertain exactly how much charge there is in the battery.
Yes.
So you have to start counting coulombs in and out of the battery. Sodium ion is the other side of that to lithium ion. It's got a very wide voltage range. So what we have to deal with in a pack is about double the voltage and therefore double the current over the entire energy capacity of the battery. Now, what that means is that you can't take a sodium battery and stick any old inverter technology on there. The inverter has to be capable of dealing with a very wide voltage range. So that's why we have paired our battery solution with an inverter technology that can cope with that significant voltage difference across the capacity of the battery. So you can't just take this stuff and stick any old inverter on it. It's got to be paired with the right technology. And that's wwhy we've provided a complete solution.
Yeah. And actually, more and more people are buying full solutions from the same manufacturer anyway. I guess there are other advantages of that, and maybe we'll cover some of those later on.
Sure,
so. Oh, right. This is really good to hear then. So the downsides aren't as bad as I thought they might be. No. What about cycle life, though? I think that was one other one I'd heard about.
Sure. I mean, most systems are warranted for about 10 years. We're very similar to that. We have a 10-year warranty, but we warranty for 8,000 cycles on the battery, which I think is more than most other warranties. And what we're seeing, again, in all of the field data that we've extracted, we're seeing no real degradation in performance over the life. And in the lab, we've got systems that are just constantly cycling the battery over and over again, and we're not measuring any real degradation in performance. So I don't think there's any downsides to cycle life. But of course, when you build into that depth of discharge, and we spoke earlier of there being no real penalty to high depth of discharge, what that means in reality is that you've got far more confidence in using the full battery capacity without the kind of build-up of harmful dendrites in the cells.
Well, thanks for taking us through that, Neil. I guess with any technology, there will be pros and cons, but it's clear that you're very confident about the technology because you've started a company delivering sodium-ion products. In fact, I think you're the UK's first fully integrated home battery. Is that right? Fantastic. So, Andy, maybe I can come back to you then. There's no doubt about it. You are entering a crowded market, and you're coming in with a brand new technology. Could you maybe just explain the rationale behind that and why you think that it's going to win for you?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, sodium-ion batteries aren't all that new. I've sold some about 10 years ago from another manufacturer. But the technology just wasn't quite ready then. They didn't have the energy density they needed. They hadn't really thought about the integration with the inverter. As Neil said, you need an inverter that's got a wider voltage range to handle the voltage of the battery pack. But we think everything's sort of coming together now. There have been great improvements in the technology, in those sort of anodes and cathodes and the electrolytes that we've been talking about. They're really crucial in giving you long cycle life and giving you enough energy density to compete with the lithium-ion batteries. And a really important thing is actually just about the scale of manufacturing of the cells. You do need to commit to huge runs on sort of gigafactory scales in order to bring this price down. Yeah. And it's not just us actually who are getting into sodium-ion technology. There are a number of companies that are starting to make these cells in huge volumes. And we're able to sort of piggyback on that and use the cells, but come up with a product that's really well suited for the UK market. It's got an inverter that's built to go alongside it. And again, it's got a home energy management system that really makes it work for UK homes. So we do think we've got a really compelling product. It is different from the other things in the market in that it uses a really sustainable material, but it's also a really well thought through product in terms of the whole home energy management system. So yes, it's a crowded market, but we're looking forward to really getting in there and taking a big share of it.
Fantastic. So can we talk about the actual product that you have in the market then, and how that stacks up against the fierce competition that I already see there?
Yeah. So, I mean, actually our battery system is composed of both hardware and software. You've got sort of energy management system that goes alongside of things. In terms of the hardware, we've also got this nice battery here. Yeah. This is actually our Generation 2 product, which we're just having manufactured at the moment. So the first ones should be hitting the shelves in the UK in about sort of 6 weeks or so.
Oh,
so
wow.
Probably just around Christmas time if you're interested in this particular system. But really nice looking, very simple and quick to put together. This is the battery and the sort of combiner box, and then there's a separate inverter that goes with that. Yep. At the moment, we've got a 3.6 kilowatt R5 and a 6 kilowatt inverter, which are fine for most households. We're just bringing out an 8, 10 and a 12 kilowatt single phase inverter as well. Fantastic. And some 3-phase ones earlier in the new year as well. So we've got some really nice hardware. Looks good, very quick and easy to install. Yeah. But as I said, you need to have really good energy management software to go alongside that. And that's perhaps where I should pass over to Neil, because he's the one who's developed our home energy management system. And that's really important in terms of sort of seeing the whole picture of the house working together. So EV chargers, heat pumps, time of use tariffs are a really important thing as well. And we're trying to make sure that our app works really well with all these different things. And it's not just about the battery.
Well, Neil, perhaps you can take us through some of those aspects then.
Yeah, sure, because obviously you say it's a congested market, and indeed it is. We're the first to market with a sodium-based energy storage system. Will we be the only ones in 2-3 years' time? I would say no. So what we see with sodium, yes, there's some benefits in terms of cold weather performance, in terms of longevity, but the predominant decision, the conscious decision that we see customers making is around the kind of the ethics and the environmental concerns of mining lithium and of course the geopolitical issues surrounding that. But we didn't want to be a one-trick pony. We wanted to kind of make sure that that conscious decision that you make before the system goes in doesn't become regret after the system has gone in. So we focus very heavily on the other challenges, certainly that you see in the UK. You know, I know that you're present on a lot of the kind of Facebook forums, and it's very common that you see homeowners posting a message saying, had my battery system installed last week, put my EV on charge last night, and my battery storage system is empty this morning.
Yes.
And the answer that you tend to get is this wiring diagram that you somehow have to rewire your house to so that it doesn't see the EV charger. So that was one of the big issues that I wanted to tackle right from the outset. So we work with sensors and switches from a company called Shelly.
Yes.
They do a whole range of CE and UKCA approved technology for understanding where the energy consumption is around the house and controlling it. And we fully integrated that into our solution, so much so that I keep getting these gushing messages from Shelly as to how impressed they are with how we've integrated it. And what that means is that we don't just understand what the house is consuming, we understand where it's consuming it. And that gives us the ability, A, to react. So as you onboard, for example, a CT clamp that's wrapped around the EV chargers, we understand that and we just say, oh, do you want to disable the house battery while the EV is charging?
Brilliant.
So we're very contextual with how we've added these capabilities, but also it allows us to understand in far more granular detail where that consumption is. So for example, we work with the energy tariffs. So we have an integration with Octopus.
Nice.
And that integration allows us to understand what tariff you're on and what those prices are. So this allows us to automatically adapt and forecast to the changing requirements. So we know how much solar you've used, how much energy you've used, and where you've used it. And we're also ingesting, we've used the GPS in the app when the system was commissioned, so we know where the system is.
Right.
And we're downloading weather data for that site. So we understand what the weather's like during the analytics that we've got, and we understand what the weather's going to be like. So for example, if we've got a sensor on a heat pump, we can understand that you're going to use more energy tomorrow because it's going to be colder than you did previously.
Yeah.
So we've been far more contextual with that. So it allows us to provide the homeowner with more insight, but also to react quicker to changing environmental conditions and forecast better. And what that means is that even if you're not on Agile, it means that you can take more of a set and forget kind of outlook to things, that we can adapt as the seasons adapt. So you're not having to kind of look in and check in on the system day after day to make sure that it's kind of, you know, do I need to charge it overnight because it's not so good tomorrow? So we can adapt far quicker to changing conditions. But also what we've tackled is the installer challenges. There seems to be a disproportionate number of systems that are commissioned at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday.
Yes.
You know, the installers just spent kind of 3 days on the roof, you know, lugging panels up there, and the system is the last thing to ever be commissioned, you know, in every system. And what that results in is obviously we want a streamlined experience for the installer. So we provide a traffic light system. So we check everything over. We tell the installer that everything's good to proceed. We're doing things like we're actually checking the direction of the CT clamp, for example, to make sure they put it on the right way around. So what we've done is to streamline the commissioning experience for installers, but also we deal with the handover to the homeowner. Because usually after the commissioning, it's kind of, right, tools are in the van, enjoy, bye. So we deal with the handover to the homeowner as part of the commissioning process. The installer puts the email address of the homeowner in. We then invite the homeowner to adopt the system. And once they've taken over that system, we're then sending an email to the homeowner, introducing them to the next steps, which isn't just about how the system operates. It's things like registering for export. Brilliant. Are you on the right tariff? So it's covering all of the considerations that the homeowner needs to make in the kind of early days of ownership.
Yeah, I mean, it's a well thought through customer journey. I really like it. And I really like the fact that it's not just about the hardware or the battery. Like you say, it's the management behind it. I get so many comments to my videos saying, you can buy really cheap batteries, you don't need to buy these expensive branded ones. But actually what you're buying is the value add, the capability on top of the basic function of the battery. And I think a lot of people just don't get that. So I love it, the fact that you're doing that.
That's right.
I'm actually really impressed. Now that I hear more about the products that you've got, I'm really impressed on where things are going. So that leads me to my final question then. I'm not sure who to ask. Andy, I'll ask you this one, I think. Just thinking about the future, I don't want you to give any away trade secrets about what you're trying to do, but where do you see the future of the company and also the technologies that you're working with, if you don't mind?
Yeah, well, we've got a rolling improvement program for the hardware and the software. So we've mentioned this new stackable product coming out early in the new year with this sort of wider range of inverters, and constant improvements being pushed out to the app. So this sort of smart, intelligent algorithm that looks time of use tariffs should be widely available within the sort of next week or so. But then we've got some really exciting longer term ambitions as well, because we are a small company. We've had to sort of use off the shelf cells and use contract manufacturers to get our product to market quickly. But what we'd really love to have is a sodium ion system where the cells are actually manufactured in the UK. Okay. So we've been having some really exciting conversations with some of the academic community, because there's a really rich set of research groups that work at Imperial College, in St Andrews, various other universities in the UK. Even here in Cambridge, there's a really great research group. And they're really keen to work with companies like ourselves to actually translate some of this technology into things that will actually be in people's homes. So it's early days yet. But we're sort of exploring what that would look like, and if we can do some sort of trial production runs within the next couple of years. So yeah, we're proudly British in terms of the sort of design and so on at the moment, but we'd love to have the manufacturing in this country as well, and that's what we're working towards. So watch this space.
Okay, that sounds like quite an exciting future ahead of you. I'm really impressed with what I've seen here today and where you're going with the product. And I wish you all the success with it. And I'd just like to say thanks very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and have a chat with me today. I think my viewers will really like to hear what's going on, especially with the new technologies that you're dealing with. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the interview. There's definitely a place for sodium-ion batteries in the home solar market, not least because these batteries will soon be very cheap to produce. And isn't it great that almost every year we're hearing about new battery technologies? I love it that technology never stands still. We're living in exciting times. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And please watch to the end of this video if you'd like to support me in my work so I can keep bringing you interesting content.